All right, welcome. Today we're going to talk about the Lightroom. So just to double check, there are two Adobe programs. One is called Lightroom and one is called Lightroom Classic. We will be working exclusively in Lightroom Classic. That is the standard for desktop editing and is pretty much the industry standard for professional photographers. If you are someone who works on your phone, if you do a lot of phone photography, stuff like that outside of class, Lightroom might be good for you. It transfers photos very, very easily from device to device and allows you to do simple edits on the go just on your phone. We will not be doing that. So do make sure that the program that you have installed is Lightroom Classic. Okay. And before we get started with that, I'm just going to show you the couple of things that I have at the ready. So presumably you have gone out into the field and you have shot all of your images, and you open up your camera and you will have the SD card. It could be large like this, or it could be about the quarter of that size, and that's called a micro SD card. So either one, totally fine. Okay, the other thing that I have at the ready is my card reader. So there are a lot of different types of card readers. I like this adapter, just got it off of Amazon, and I love it because it has both the regular SD slot and the micro SD card, and because I have a Mac that requires the USB-C port, I also really like that it has 3 USB ports on the back. So that's the one that I got. You know, make your own choices. There are really simple SD card readers that you can get for about $10. This was about $25, so choose whatever works for you. If you're working on a desktop, it is possible that the actual monitor does have a port that accepts the SD card. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and plug that into the computer. And the other thing that I have with me and that I use just as policy is my external hard drive. So this is a Seagate. I think this is a 2 terabyte. And I remember I did tell you to always save your photos in 2 locations. So for me today, I am choosing locally on my desktop and also on my external hard drive. I would not recommend your SD card as one of those storage devices, only because they can deteriorate over time, and specifically the prongs get really loose in the structure. The physical structure of the actual SD card can get compromised over time. So I wouldn't consider that for long-term storage, although that is an option if you decide for this semester, if you have a 60 gig SD card and you don't use all the memory, if you do want to keep your images on that, that is fine too. But I wouldn't recommend relying on that in the long term. Okay, so I have my external hard drive, I have my SD card all plugged in, so we are ready to launch Lightroom. And just a little reminder, my screen might look a little bit different from your screen because I have used Lightroom before. If you have installed it and you have never opened it, it will pop up and it will go through the tutorials. You know, do you want to learn about X? What do you want your desktop, your working space to look like? All those little things. If it does prompt you, say yes. Go through the little tutorials, see how to navigate the program. It is malleable. So I choose to set up my workspaces in all of my Adobe programs for my workflow. Your workflow might be a little bit different, and typically Adobe programs do have the ability to change the way your workspace looks. So do not be worried if my workspace, my window, looks different from yours. Totally normal. Okay. So I'm going to share my whole screen first because I do want to show up here at the top. There we go. Okay, up here at the top you see that little, it's sort of like 2 circles. It's not quite an infinity sign, but it's close. The 2 circles and mine has a red dot. If you double click that, that is your Creative Cloud. So when you double click that, it should pop up and it will tell you a number of different things. So the shortcuts, so this means that these are all the programs that I have already installed and are accessible locally on my computer. Okay, all sorts of different things here. If we go over to the left-hand side, I can go to my apps. So it will see I have installed all of these, and these are available in my plan. Your plan might look different. That's totally fine. And we're double checking here. I do have Lightroom, but we're not using that. We are using LRC, which is Lightroom Classic. And all of these are up to date. I have my settings so that they automatically update. If you don't have it automatically set to that, I would encourage you to, every time you open, just pop this window open, make sure you don't need to install an update. Okay, so that's also on this window. You can look for your updates. You can specifically look for photo programs, etc., etc. The other thing that I did want to point out, which is here, so if you click into apps and then you go down here, you can go to tutorials. And I find that the tutorials are very, very helpful. They do come from Adobe itself, and they are applicable to each and every app. So I think that's a really wonderful resource. You can also, if you're on this screen, you can go over and find tutorials right here. So tutorials for all apps. You can go ahead and open that. Mine's taken a while to load. Okay, I'm not gonna wait for that to load. Actually, I'm just gonna go ahead and move on. But do know that Adobe has really wonderful tutorials. So if at any point you get stuck on anything, you can go ahead and watch a tutorial. Sometimes people need it said a couple of different ways, and I'm one of those people, so I don't blame you. The tutorial that I talk you through today might not be the best way. Maybe you need to see it in writing, or maybe you need to see it done in a different way or described in a different way. Totally fine. Okay, so that's where you find that. So do make sure that you have Lightroom installed, and I'll go ahead and double click and open that. Also, the other thing that I can do while I'm waiting is to go ahead and grab all of my photos off of my SD card. So I'm just clicking on my SD card, that emblem right there, and I get all these different photos. So this typically corresponds to the different devices that I have plugged it into. This 4-channel and stereo is typically for audio, MP4 and audio recording, so I don't need that. What I actually use, and the acronym for my camera itself, is the DCIM. Yours might be different, and there's the 100 Canon, which is what I was using. So if I navigate here, I can see all of the photos that I took. And so this is a project that really has nothing to do with this class, but it does make sense with the Common Thread project, so that's why I chose it. So I actually photographed medical equipment. So I did it on a pink background and just individual medical devices in a very formulaic manner. So remember that recipe and formula is something that I suggested you do. So this project is very formulaic in that way. Okay, so I have all of this. This is my 100 Canon. It is all located in that folder. So what I am going to do is I'm going to drag and drop this off of my SD card and onto my desktop. So I could also dump this straight into my external hard drive, onto my desktop, wherever. But this is going to be the first way that you save. And you do need them to be saved locally somewhere in order for you then to use the Lightroom workflow. Perfect. Okay, we're done. So I could, at this point, go ahead and wipe all of these photos off of my SD card. I'm not going to do that right away just because I simply don't need to do that right now. But if you're wanting to use this tomorrow for a new project, I recommend you go ahead and just wipe it right away. Okay. Okay, so I have already launched Lightroom, so that's why it's prompting this. So your catalog will be upgraded, which makes sense because an upgrade had happened, but in between now and the last time I opened this. And I do already have this saved in there. So this was going to be one of my suggestions, and then one of the things that I walk you through is naming your catalog. So I do it very simply. So for you, I might do photo 1 catalog and your last name. I do recommend putting your last name somewhere in the title so that if this gets saved in a different location, other people can easily say, oh, hey, found this in a computer. Is this your USB? Is this your external hard drive, etc. So I do recommend titling something to your last name. Okay, so I'm gonna just go ahead and say yes, upgrade. Okay. Okay. So yes, it always pops up with some sort of prompt that says, this is your update, and sometimes gives you a tour around. So this is work that I actually did. I worked for the City of Tempe Arts and Culture. So this is a program that we did in the schools. Lots of people having fun here. But that is not what I'm working on today. That is just simply what is showing up in my catalog already. Okay. And it says file cannot be found because I did change the location of this file. So because I dragged and dropped all of that stuff from my SD card to my desktop, if I then change it from my desktop to a different folder or to an external hard drive or to a USB, it will say file cannot be found. That's totally fine. You just need to relink it. Not a real serious issue, but I do recommend that wherever you drag and drop it is where you're going to leave it. Okay, and I also do have this, and I will share this with you. This is the workflow for digital files in Lightroom. This is a pretty old info sheet, but things are relatively still relevant, haven't changed too much. And I'm one of those people that I like to kind of see lists of things. So I like to just remind myself that this is how the workflow goes. Okay, so number 1, setting up your catalog. Plug in your storage device with your pictures on it. Compile all of your photographs into one folder. They should already be there. Open Lightroom, choose New Catalog from the File menu. So I'm going to go ahead and, I already have a catalog going, but I'll just, for the sake of demo purposes, do another one. So we are going to do File, New Catalog. And I'm going to save as demo catalog. Okay, and that works for me. Okay, so this is saying how often do you want to back up this file? Typically, once a week is totally fine. Where do you want to back it up? The previously selected backup folder is not available, again, because I moved it, which is absolutely fine. So instead, I am going to I just dropped an earbud in my water. That's a fun time. Oh dear. All right. Well, that's fun. Moving on. So I went ahead and I plugged in my external hard drive, and I'm going to go ahead and create my backup there. Okay, and I will say backup to that location. Okay, and typically it has to kind of shut down and reload. This will take a while, and I do recommend that when you are working in this program, you close out every other Adobe program that you're working with, because this will take a lot of your computer bandwidth. If you're trying to run other programs in the meantime, it can get a little finicky. Okay, so this right here is my new catalog that I have just discovered. So next up, so after I've created that catalog, the way that Lightroom works is that it will save your quote-unquote raw photo, and then it will also save all the edits that you then continue to make to each of these photos. So you can always go back. You can always go back to the original. So if you decide that, you know, all of the edits that I did in the last hour, I'm not loving them, I don't know what I was thinking, these are terrible, you can always go back to the original. And that's one of the really lovely things about Lightroom. And now that we've made this catalog, you will never have to create a new one. I created a new one just for demo purposes, but you can use this catalog for years and years and years. I know people who have used the same catalog for their entire life. Totally fine. Okay, next up, we're going to import our images to Lightroom. So we can click the import button on the lower left. Okay, and here is where, if things look different in your window, do not worry about it. So I am in Develop. I actually need to go back to Library, and then I can start importing. Okay, so just to say that again, I was up here on Develop. I need to click over to Library on that tab up here, and now the import button is visible in the lower left. Okay, and I can go ahead and select. This is going to pull them from my SD card. Now that I save them to my desktop, I can also pull them from the desktop. Doesn't really matter. Okay. Okay, and then once I select that, all of those are check marked, and I do want you to select all of the images. So even these ones that, you know, I was just setting up my camera and I was running a lot of tests and trying to figure out the light. So all of these are kind of bad images, but keep them in, because I would like to see that. That tells me how your brain is working. That says, oh, they were trying to figure out some stuff for the first 10 images, and then they really nailed it and got to their recipe from there on out. Okay. Okay, so you can click the import button. We did that. Select a source, the folder that houses all of your images by using the bar at the left-hand import window. Select all of the images that you want to import. Import them all. Apply any metadata that you want to your import via the Apply During Import caret on the right of the import screen. So that is over here. Apply During Import, that is that caret. Keywords. So I can do things like common thread, I can do medical, I can do 2024, I can do anything that helps you find these images in the future. Maybe I could do still life. Anything that helps you, okay? You can do pets, you can do animals, you can do vacations, you can do whatever helps you find things. Okay, separate those by commas, and then you will be able to search those in the future. Okay, click the import button on the right-hand side of your screen. So that is down here. Boop, import. And that'll take a minute, especially if you've shot a lot of images. After that, your images are in your catalog, and they will be there every time you open up Lightroom with your storage device connected. You will not have to re-import the images each time you use Lightroom, but you should always import any new images as you take them. You can then start organizing your photos. So you can rotate any photos that need rotating. So let's see. If I were to say, okay, these are forceps. If I wanted to rotate them, I could use the little arrows, these tiny little arrows on the left and right bottom of the window to rotate them if I wanted. Here's a speculum. Blades. Okay, so you rotate any that need rotating. Not a lot of mine need rotating. Click the plus button on the right of the collection caret. Choose a type of collection you would like to make, so you can do collection sets. Those are a good way of organizing groups of photos that will have subsets within them. For example, a collection set, maybe portraits, with various collections inside, such as family, friends, strangers. And collections are your basic type. You can create them as freestanding or as part of a collection set. So that's going to be over here. On the left-hand window, you can do the collections caret. Make sure that that is pointing down and open. And you can do the plus on the right side of that, and I can say create a collection. So let's use the example. So this could be portraits, and that's my collection set. Okay, and then if I am selecting on portraits and I click the plus again, I can say create a collection set. And just using that same example, I can do family, create. And that one actually didn't nestle in, so I can actually drag and drop it into portraits. Okay, so collections over here, make sure that that caret is down so that you see that expanded list. And over to the right, there's that little plus sign. You can click on that. And let's create a collection set. So just like the example says, I'm going to name this portraits. And that's my collection set. I can go ahead and create. Then if I click on that, I can do another plus, and I can say create collection. And again, just like the example, I can do family. And then this says inside a collection set. So the family is going to show up inside portraits. Okay. So just like the example says, these are just ways to organize your photo. I do recommend that you start an organizational system that makes sense for you and then just keep using it. I was not a particularly organized person in my early photography years, and it has taken me years and years and years to comb through and organize all of the photos that I have taken. So if you start early and you maintain, it is much easier to keep track of. So I recommend you just create all these different folders in a way that makes sense for you. So maybe it's broken down by year, maybe it's broken down by location or project, totally up to you. Just make sure you have a system and you are sticking to that system. Okay, and for this, I'm going to create a collection. So this is medical still life. And I don't want that inside the portraits. I want it to be its own. So I'll create that. So my medical still life exists down there. Okay, so going back over here, collections are your basic type. We went through that. Smart collections are a way of sorting out images that you have done something to, labeled a certain way, edited, rated, etc., which I usually reserve for later. So after you have edited them, my favorite way to organize actually Yes. No, cancel that. Okay, so if I go back to all photographs, my favorite way to organize photos is simply the star system at the bottom. So all of these I would give a 1 star to, because I was just testing my camera. I was just setting, you know, I was using strobes and flash different lighting situations for this. So all of those were tests. Those are bad. I'm gonna go ahead and star them as one star. They're bad. I don't like them. And then once I get down to the ones that were serious, so we're starting to get into the serious one, so I can tell that that's a good one. I'm going to rank it 5 star. Okay, 5 star, 5 star, 1 star, 1 star. So if I start ranking all of those, then I can go back into my catalog, my collections, and I can create a smart collection. And I can make this smart collection based on all sorts of different things. So I can do ratings, I can flag them, I can color them via labels, I can title them. You know, you can sort them by date. So if you wanted to make sure that you had all the photos that you took on Saturday, for example, if you wanted all of the photos that you took on a particular camera, all of the photos that you took in a particular country, you could create smart folders based on that. But for the rating, I can do is greater than or equal to 5 star. So it would only save the photos that I thought were 5 star. So it just immediately disregards all of those test images, and now I have an entire folder just based on the images that I thought were 5 star. Okay, and I wouldn't worry about that the first time you start editing. That's a really great way to start picking your final edits, your final images. Okay, choose a methodology that makes sense to you. Figure out which ones are going to be your final ones, so that can be as simple as flagging. So the flags are right up here. I can flag that photo, and perhaps the flag means that's one of my final 10. I know that that's one of my final 10 images. So you can use those flag emblems, symbols. Okay. You can add keywords or metadata that might be helpful to you. So we labeled all of these photos as 2024 common thread medical still life. But if I wanted to select just this image, I would click on it so you see that that one is highlighted. And then if this one was the only one that had, oh gosh, what is the name of this medical device? You know what? I'm not sure. So we can call it unknown instrument. Okay, so I can add that to just that image. So now if I look up unknown instrument, then I can find that one there. If I wanted to go back, so now all of these are showing up at the bottom here. I've selected one, but I have all of these here at the bottom, or I can go back to all photographs up here and see them all up here as well. So it's just your choice. They will show up down here or up here. So if I go to this, then I can label this one as speculum. Okay, then as I'm searching later on in life, I can just type speculum and all of the ones that have a speculum will come. Okie dokie. So now might be a good time to create a smart collection based on your editing criteria. So the star ranking is my favorite way to do that. You can rearrange the order of images and compare groupings. The compare view and the survey view at the bottom of your screen are helpful for this. So I can click and I can, so if I go down here, I have that little hand. You have to hover and find the hand, and then I can sit there and grab.